There's always that little delay. Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you for coming along. Today we have a special guest on my channel who graciously is devoting his time to it. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and give us a short description of what you do.
Sure. Yeah, so my name's Athiest, and we've actually interviewed you one time with another gentleman by the name of R.H.E on our channel. I'm a Christian, but I normally have atheist co-hosts. And in fact, Harry has come on as a co-host several times now. And so we just interview people from different faiths and, you know, do so respectfully, with humility and with empathy. And those are the letters of our podcast, R.H.E, respect, humility, and empathy. So thank you so much for having me today.
Excellent. No problem at all. No, thanks for coming along. So this is going to be interesting. So to anyone out there, the questions Isaiah has agreed to answer in the description below. We've been talking on Twitter back and forth. So if you don't mind, we're going to get straight into it with question number 1. So number 1, here we go. You ready?
Yeah, I'll try.
Hi, Beach, and hi, Junk Shop. Good day. Okay, in the comments. Okay, number 1, you've claimed to know God. How did you arrive at this knowledge?
Yeah. So, so first of all, I've been sending you some taunting messages this week about being a poacher and putting you into early hibernation. It is a bit of a joke. I do like to use a little bit of satire, but I do want to start off with a joke here that I think you might like. It's an American joke. And so these two friends are in the woods and they get approached by a bear. And one of the friends starts tying his shoe. He starts putting on his shoes and tying them. And the friend, his other friend, looks at him crazy and he says, "What are you doing that for? You're not going to be able to outrun that bear." And his friend says, "Well, I don't need to outrun the bear. I just need to outrun you." So,
yeah, fair enough.
so that has to do with what I want to talk about today, because these questions, I am not going to be able to answer them fully. I'll just admit that right from the top. But the thing is that I don't really need to, if this is some kind of race, I don't really need to outrun the bear, which is like knowing everything. I just need to outrun an atheist, which is, I'm using you as an example here, but I just need to answer a little bit more. I think of this as more of like a civil case where I just need to tip the scale a little bit, where it's not as like a jury case where I need to prove it beyond any reasonable doubt. So I'm going to.
That's okay. No need to prove anything. No need to prove anything, or no need to provide evidence or demonstrate anything. It's really just, how did you arrive, just succinctly and as best you can. How did you arrive at the knowledge that you know God? Yeah,
I was just giving that as a preface because that just I'm honest about my lack of full knowledge of everything. So I mean, I had an experience. Well, I'll start this up. So in 2013, I went to Israel, and if you look this up, it's called Juche. It's like the official religion, like doctrine of North Korea, and it means self-reliance. So I went into Israel and I got this tattooed on me, and as well as some other paganism tattoo on my legs. And it was like very symbolic of like, I don't need God, you know, on my right hand. And I mean, I was smoking weed there. I was drinking. I literally walked on the Via Dolorosa where they say Jesus was crucified, looked at it, and I just walked the other way. So I really had
allegedly crucified, shall we say? Yep.
Allegedly, where they say, I don't, even as a Christian, I don't accept that that's where he was crucified, but that's another story. But anyway, so I wound up spending a week in Palestine, visiting a mosque. I actually had this big old turban and big old beard. I look like a total Taliban member, and maybe I'll show you in a second. But yeah, I had no interest in it. But I left there, and it's as though the hand of God came down and smashed me, because
within the next few smashed you. Okay.
Yeah, because within
this wasn't the marijuana talking, was it?
No. This is way before. This is
because some pretty bad come downs off certain drugs, right?
No, this is South Korea. You can't give. I was in South Korea at this point, so you can't.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you're away from drug use.
So I was living with my girlfriend for 4 months in Greece. This is just a proper setup, okay? Because you got to know where I was. So 4 months I'm living with my girlfriend in Greece. I pop out, go and visit like Macedonia, where I go to Kosovo, and then I flew down into Israel, went into Egypt, stayed in mosque in Palestine. So I had no interest in Jesus Christ. And when I got back to South Korea, it's like I had everything set here. But I mean, I couldn't get a job, wind up homeless. Many nights where I didn't even have like $10 to go sleep somewhere. I literally had to stay out all night. And so many days I was just hungry. And like I was used to a lifestyle where I had thousands of dollars, able to travel, do everything. I just got back from 4 months overseas. So anyway, so then
could it have been jet lag?
This is multiple. This is multiple.
I'll let you keep going. Sorry, keep going. I'm pushing back a little bit. That's all.
Oh, that's fine. After 3 months, my grandmother died, and so I went back to America.
Sorry. Yep.
Yeah, just this last month, my uncle and aunt died. So it's been a tragic.
I'm sorry to hear that. It's
tragic year for my family because also my cousin died too. But anyway, thank you. But anyway, so shortly after, I was in my room and I told my father never to mention the name of Jesus Christ to me again because he tried to pray for me. And actually, the last time I saw my mom alive, I told her I didn't believe in Jesus Christ. And then 4 months later, she winds up dying on my birthday out of all days. I went there for Christmas.
Wow.
She was so upset with me because I actually got this Egyptian tattoo right here. And I was telling her I didn't want anything to do with religion, with Jesus. And I thought her and my father had wasted their whole lives.
So your parents were religious?
Ministers, yeah, ministers.
They were actual ministers. They had exposure to the doctrines of Christianity before, and you went away from that. Is what I'm getting from you? Is that you traveled, you stepped away from Christianity for quite a while? And is that right? Yeah.
Well, I went to Bible college. My mom forced me to go to Bible college.
Oh, okay. Yep. So you had full knowledge of Christianity. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the reason I went to South Korea is because I wanted to be able to travel and do drugs and sleep with prostitutes and drink all night long. And that's really hard to do that where I was because I had to live like a double life. I was like a secret agent.
You were a double agent.
James Bond, to go out and drink or to sleep with a woman. So it was like it was so stressful for me.
So you accepted your sin and you love to live in sin. That's why you stepped away. Yeah.
I did. Yeah. And then
okay.
And it wrecked my life. It really did. I was actually divorced at the time. So so I wanted to find Jesus Christ. And as I was saying, I told my father never to mention the name of Jesus Christ to me again. And I had never wanted to do that because the last time I saw my mom, I told her that and she died. So I didn't want to cross that line with my dad because I knew it was something that was important to him. But I finally told him, and the very next day, Jesus Christ spoke to me. So, yeah.
So that moment, so you come from a bad situation, you've had some bad experiences. You're sort of traveling the world. You're mentioning divorce, some death in the family.
Yeah.
And then, so this hand of God that hit you. Describe that for us, please. So where were you? What day was it? What time? How were you feeling?
Oh, yeah. You talking about when he spoke to me?
Exactly that moment. Yes, please.
Okay, so that was 5:16. I'm not sure you can see that right there.
Yeah, 5:16.
Trying to show this. Yeah.
You time stamped it.
I time stamped it. It was very.
You time stamped the moment God. You felt the hand of God slap you.
That's fine. I'll just say it because I had opened up to my father about some sexual abuse I received as a kid that I was hiding my whole life that really wound up just destroying my intimacy with women. I just could not be faithful. I could not even sleep in the same bed as a woman. So it was something that would really annoy my girlfriends because I would be with them and then I couldn't fall asleep. So I'd have to go sleep on a couch. So it caused some issues in our relationships.
Sure, understandable. Yeah.
Yeah. So if it was
and look, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I sincerely am. I've never, just a quick interjection, if it's okay, I've never experienced anything like that in my life personally,
You're
or anyone
fortunate.
really. I know I am, and or really, especially coming from Catholicism. So there were times and stories that had come out around me in my youth about things that had happened, and there were a number of priests moved around in my districts that were right. It was that very Catholic thing of covering things up. So I was never exposed to it. It never happened to me, and it's not a reason why I stepped away from Catholicism or anything at all. So I'm sorry to hear it happen to you, because I do know that this does happen. Not saying it was in a religious context for you, but just saying that, I mean, that definitely impacts in so many ways.
Yeah, that was interesting. Whenever you came on my channel, I asked you about what was easier to deconvert from, Catholicism or Protestantism. And your response was really, I was not expecting that. So you caught me off guard with your response about how that might be contributing to it, or
I think I said there wasn't a 24-hour news period where a Catholic wasn't mentioned. It was quite simple to see the hypocrisies within the church. And
and my thought was that the reason why it would be easier to deconvert was because Catholicism is like, if you go to church service, it's very dead. It's like you're not really even interacting. It's just like these forced rituals. And so with inside of Protestants, our religion, it's totally different. So anyway,
516, what happened? Tell me.
Well, I was in my room, as I said. I told my dad the day before, don't ever mention the name of Jesus Christ to me again. And I don't care. I'm just going to say this because it happened this way, and so I don't want to lie to you. I was smoking marijuana at the time because it's something I did very frequently, smoking marijuana and drinking. And I know what everyone's going to say. Oh, that was just that you had smoked some very good marijuana. No, I had smoked a lot of marijuana before and even after, and I've never had an audible voice speak to me like that before. So this was in fact, even in the multiple times that God has spoken to me since then, he's never done so audibly. So this was a one-time event. And then, as I said, so he did wind up speaking to me multiple times after that, totally sober. So it was just that he found me in a moment where I was really, really bad off and I really needed help. And he spoke to me. It changed my life. I gave my life to him. 3 years after that fact, I came back to South Korea and my wife got pregnant the first night with our daughter. So he reunited me. Now our daughter, she's almost 4. Yeah, so things haven't been perfect, but he's definitely restored my life.
So there's a couple of things there that seems to be causal. You seem to have, just from my point of view, I'm going to apply some skepticism to that. And as you pointed out, yes, of course, the drug influence is one of them, obviously, isn't it? So we can't rule that out to be, if that was a factor or the main drive to allowing you to hear something in your head, we can't exactly rule that out to be or not to be. But James raises a good point here, if you see on your screen. So what did God sound like?
Just a regular voice. Just
regular voice? Male, female?
Male, maybe a little bit louder. A little bit clearer, maybe.
And said what exactly?
What did he say? Okay, so the first thing I heard in there is I'm literally in my room, and he says, Isaiah, I am God. And I literally jump across my room because it scares the living crap out of me. And the last thing I believe is that a deity is in my room. Okay. That's literally the last thing in the world I believed. So
can it be the last thing if you've been exposed to those doctrines and that religion?
Well, let me finish, please. I thought that was not Jesus Christ. Like someone had broken into my room, like a thief was in my room. So I initially just immediately went into the fight or flight mode, like who the hell is in my room? So I'm looking around and I'm like, the closet was over there, and I'm like who's in here, you know? And then I clearly saw nothing was in my closet. So the next thought I just had was, okay, well, who are you? And he says, I am Jesus Christ. And then the next thing, this is what's going to be a lot harder for you to try to dismiss, because you're going to say, I know it was just in your mind. Okay, but listen to this. So the next thing he says is, I am the light of this world. And he says, when people choose darkness over light, you do not blame the light. So I swear in like 1 second, like the abuse that I had suffered and all the depression, all the anxiety just totally made sense whenever I realized that all that was like the lack. It was like a privation of the goodness of God that I experienced. That privation means like a total like lack of something. And then the next thing he said was that all the time that you were running away from me when you were being disobedient, I was right beside you the whole time. And I promise you, Mr. Bear, I would tell you, I would bet my life on this fact. But sometimes people say before you die, you see your whole life flash before your eyes. I promise you, I saw I'm not supposed to swear as a Christian, but I would, if I could, I would promise this on the life of my daughter. I'm not going to, but I would tell you that on her eternal existence, I would tell you, I saw like my life in 2 seconds. I saw like 30 years pass by, and I saw God's hand of protection protecting me when I had like an absolute death wish. Like there were times I was overseas using drugs, like just no care if I lived or died, total lack of regard for my life.
Sure.
And then, and then the last thing he said was that, I love you, and if you were the only person on this planet, I would have died for you. So I fell to my knees. I gave my life to Jesus Christ. Now that Sunday, I walked into church for the first time in a really long time. Actually, I went one time before that because my cousin had invited me, but I had went like years without going to church. And first of all, the minister was preaching on God being the light of the world. So, okay, that might just be a little bit of a coincidence. Okay, I'll grant you that. But then I went home to America.
Look, there are a lot of coincidences here. Yeah. But I'll let you wrap up. Yeah.
That's a relatively small one. That is a really small one. But that was the first one. I was like, wow. So then I went home to California because I was in Oregon at this point, and my family sits me down and says, "You're going into counseling tomorrow morning because clearly you've gone insane." You know what I mean? So I was like, oh, okay. So that night I prayed. I was like, God, like my family thinks I'm insane. So I prayed. I'm like, God, please just give me a sign like that I'm going in the right direction here. And so I went to a conference later on that day, and a guy who had a prophetic gift called me up, told me like 20 things that were going on in my life. And one of the things that he said was, speaking in the form of God, he says, I love you. And if you're the only person in history, I would have died for you. And it was like total confirmation of one of the things that God had told me. So yeah, that's what it is. If you have any other questions, or we can go on to the next one.
Basically, going through all that, like I say, look, I apply skepticism to any claim. Like if someone tells me even the most mundane thing, like my grandfather had 6 fingers, he was the first person to, he invented tarot card reading or whatever, right? Or my great-great-grandfather, say. So I have to apply even some of the most mundane things, or even like you say, for example, like the other night we were talking and you said, look, I have a daughter. Let's use this example, which is relatable. You have a daughter, and I can take it on faith that you have a daughter. I can believe that. But really, I still need to apply skepticism to that, because until I see your daughter and understand your family and know the history of you and see your relationship with her, then I can believe that. I can believe through empiricism that you have a daughter. But I can take it on faith in that way. So what you're doing, what you've done here is, if I apply some skepticism to your claim, there was drugs involved. There was, and I know you probably heard this over and over again from critics of your story, people who've heard your story. Let's just look at what is undeniable. Drugs were involved. You were at a low time in your life. You'd spoken to your father. I don't know what the relationship is with your father, but there was obviously some very, very history there of I'm assuming that ups and downs, as we all do with our parents. So we had quite a low point in your life. So what's more likely? Is it more likely logically to say you were reaching out for something to help you through your life, which leads into my second question, which was, would you feel despair without believing in a God? Which flows into that really nicely. Like if there was nothing like a crutch to rely on in terms of putting yourself out there to believe in something better than yourself or bigger than yourself, would you be just in despair without that belief?
First of all, it's a really good question. And second of all, I do understand why you or anyone else would be skeptical of those kind of claims, because even in the realms of Christianity, I tell Christians about this and they don't believe it, So if my own family wouldn't believe the stuff that I've told them, I don't really expect some random bear on the internet to believe something like that. But if you ask me the question, I'm going to tell you the question, and I'm going to tell you. I don't like including the fact that there were drugs involved, and one, and then two. If I'm be honest with you, I didn't talk to my dad for years. I had beef with him. I felt like he didn't protect me as a kid. If he would have told me X, Y, and Z, if someone does this, you do X, Y, and Z. I felt like it was his fault entirely. So I felt like he had failed me as a father. So, and that wound up like ruining a big part of my life. So there was a lot of animosity. And so I kind of felt the only way I could repay the hatred I felt towards my father. Like, I can't even tell you the level of hatred. I used to get drunk here and just try to build up the courage to call him and tell him how much I hated him, But now he's like my best friend on the planet, and
that's good to hear. That's good.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
That's good to hear. Is it because you turned to Christianity?
Well, part of it is because when I first became a Christian, I went through like a really hard time, and he was there for me every step of the way. So I think he made up for lost time.
Lost time. That's good.
Yeah. Okay. And if people, I really would, just religion aside, if you do have a chance to reconnect with people, there's always a time to make up for the years maybe you weren't there in the past, or you can't always take back the thing, or you can't ever really take back the things. You can say, you can apologize for them, but if you have an opportunity, like my sister, I was very abusive towards my sister, and I just will say that I've tried as I can to make up for those times I was where my issues wind up getting externalized. So I do my best these days. But okay, to answer your second question.
Yeah, sure, please. Yeah. The second question, just to clarify for everybody listening, are you a Christian because you would be in despair if there was no God?
First of all, I'm a Christian because I had this experience. So I went to Bible college. I went as a missionary. I was a preacher. I was I played in our band. I used to rap for Jesus. I did all of these things, and I never had an experience with Jesus Christ. So I was like,
did you say you rapped for Jesus?
Did I say what?
Did you say you rapped for Jesus?
Yeah, I said the hip hop, the hip dip.
Okay, we won't judge you on that. That's okay.
Back in the day, some 30 years ago, I used to have dreadlocks. This scalp used to support some really cool braids, but
you had some dreads? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So there was that. It was just anything. The only way I could get my parents' approval is if I would do things inside of the church. Like if I try to write, if I try to do things that would make me happy, they just would not.
So it sounds like your father really did turn to you and make amends because you did become a Christian. To me, that's what it sounds like on the outside. It really does sound that way. But you obviously have a dynamic with your father that I don't know. I'm not aware of. But it's from what you're saying, it sounds that way. It sounds like you.
So I will tell you this. Since you're asking this question, I will. So my dad is Latino, we're Mexican, and so there's like some machismo that goes into being Latino. This machismo-ness. You're not supposed to show weakness. You're not supposed to like apologize or show emotions, things like that. So what I had wanted from my dad, as far as in terms of apology and in terms of all that, he was never able to give me. He really wasn't. To this day, he hasn't given me that. And so I used to want to project what I've learned while traveling the world or being educated and all these experiences that I've had. I wanted to project that onto my father. And I just had to accept the fact that not now or not ever is he ever going to be to the point where I'm going to be where I want him to be, So that's just something I've had to accept about him.
Just a really quick one on that. Have you ever felt or undergone any sort of counseling for these sorts of issues?
Well, They forced me to get into counseling. Like literally the next morning, I had to go.
Oh,
get
right.
into counseling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm talking about these stuff 7 years after the fact, mind you. So I can have these conversations now. I wouldn't have been able to have these conversations even while I was going through counseling. So because there would have been a lot of confusion. This is much later on. This is now as a father. This is after being able to rest and digest. This is after my father's my best friend on the planet. Maybe next on there with my daughter. So yeah, we've healed through that. I've come to understand and accept him, the generational gap, and yeah, we're good. We're totally.
Well, that's good. That's good.
But, okay.
Good. Just touching on the first question a little bit, in terms of knowing God. I mean, do you know? This is just a little side avenue. I'd like to go on to, if that's okay. Just a quick side avenue. When you say you know, so your knowledge of God, is it as solid as the knowledge that you're wearing that shirt?
Oh yeah, much more. This
more?
Might be it. Oh, absolutely. It's more than my knowledge of my daughter. Yeah. Mr. Athiest guy, Mr. Oz, preacher, pastor, atheist, he got a bit upset with me when I said that I know God more than my own daughter. But it's, for me, everything exists because of my daughter. Like, my daughter didn't create everything. My daughter didn't reveal herself to me. I revealed myself to my daughter. So God is, because every time I look up in the sky, I see God's hand in that. Every time I interact with anybody, I know that they're a creation of God. So I've had much more experiences with God in that sense, but also just God has spoken to me. He healed the internal brokenness that was inside of me. And so that, I mean, that I'm extremely grateful for. And yeah, I have zero doubt, zero doubt. I've experienced that. He didn't just speak to me once. He didn't just speak to me twice. He's spoken to me multiple times, and he's done miracles like materializing things in front of me. So I've experienced those.
Oh, well, we have to talk about that.
Yeah.
So, such as, what has he materialized in front of you?
Okay, I will answer that real quick, but let me just finish off.
Yeah, finish your thought. Sorry. Yep. Yeah, you're right. But then we've got to go into that.
That's the reason why I am a Christian. It doesn't have anything to do with the ethics. It doesn't have anything to do with what I can or can't explain about Christianity. Now, to answer your question, so it is really hard to tell you this because, so before that, I had a high-flying life, like rock style lifestyle. It was just traveling dozens of countries, hundreds of women, countless nights of vomiting.
I get it.
Yeah. That level of lifestyle where, like, anything I wanted to buy, anywhere I wanted to go, I was able to do. So that being said, there was.
Are you going to tell me that he materialized a mountain of heroin in front of you?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I will tell you that story. The several times that he has materialized things in front of me.
That's okay. Tell me the first thing he materialized. What was it?
Okay, so in 2008, maybe 2007, I declared myself an atheist. I graduated in 2006 from Bible college, moved overseas, said I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. Yep. And through, women.
Isaiah, cut to it. Tell me, what did it materialize? Okay.
Oh, I want to set this up with some context, though, because if I just
get to it. I'm pushing back. Tell me, what was it?
Okay, I went to the Philippines. I wound up giving away all my money. I went there to participate in the sex tourism industry, and I wound up getting convicted about what I was doing, and I wound up volunteering my time there in the slums, and I even helped one of the prostitutes quit her job and to start a business because I felt so bad about what I was doing. But when I got to the airport, they make you pay an exit fee, and so I tried to pay with my credit card, my debit card. They wouldn't accept it. There was no ATM machine there. I asked everybody if they could help me. All the passengers just gave me the cold shoulder. I'd given away all my money, but just out of nervousness, I was looking through my bags, couldn't find anything.
So money appeared.
Well, listen. Here it is. So in the last
God doesn't help the starving or the dying. He helps you get on a flight.
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah. There's more problems.
Let me finish the story, and then
go ahead.
because what happened is, in the last 5 minutes, I said, okay, I'm gonna miss this flight. It's all right. I'm like, it's probably gonna cost me $1,000, get another flight, get a hotel, whatever. Yep. I put on my bag and I took one step, and as soon as I took the step, God said, look inside of your bag one more time. So I'm like, I've looked inside that bag 3 times, and I know I've given away all my money here, but I'm like, I don't know where that voice is coming from. But I unzipped my bag, and there was one note and one coin that equaled the exact amount that I needed. I ran across the airport, paid it.
Amazing.
The staff was like, totally petrified.
God. Thank you.
Okay, but I will briefly answer your question, because that is,
thank you.
First of all,
I think there were about 3,000 who died in the mudslides. So he didn't stop the mudslide in South America just last month, but he gave you enough money to get on that flight, which is really good. And yes, I'm being sardonic and cynical, but I am pushing back.
Well, okay. So first of all, I'm not the one that materialized anything. So the issue there is people think that I'm arrogant because I tell a story.
Nothing.
I'm like,
nothing,
this is what happened.
Nothing materialized. It was there already, right?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't, because God spoke. God spoke.
It's more likely it was there already. No, yeah.
I'm telling you, I searched in that thing for multiple times.
You didn't see it appear from thin air, right?
No, it didn't.
So it didn't materialize.
It did materialize. It didn't materialize.
It didn't materialize unless you saw something appear from nothing. Is materialization.
One note.
So you're using the wrong word here. You're using the wrong word. You're saying that
it's still the right word.
You happen to find no, because materialization is appearing from nothing, from thin air.
It's what happened.
What you did was open a pocket and there was money in there.
That was one note and one coin that equaled the exact amount that I needed.
Which was in the pocket.
Okay.
Which appeared when you opened the zipper.
So we'll go on from that point right there. But
that's okay. We'll move on.
I know, because I know what happened. I mean, I understand why you wouldn't accept it, but I understand why. Okay, no. But as far as why God doesn't do something with starving kids, well, like we're potty training my daughter right now.
Yep. Good luck.
Yes. Yeah.
It's challenging. Yes.
Yeah. No, it's. I love seeing it, but if my daughter in like 30 years, if she was still wearing diapers, assuming she wasn't like a vegetable, but assuming she was able-bodied and still wearing diapers, I would feel horrible as a father. So as far as starving kids, like we have more than enough resources to take care of more than everyone on this planet, and more people, even the animals. So the fact that these things happen, I can imagine God that being like a diaper where we're pooping on ourselves, we're taking shites on ourselves, and I would believe that would be something that God as a father would want us to do, rather than
the Christian worldview. It's beautiful, isn't it?
There we go.
It's beautiful.
Well,
no, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. How about we go on to question 3?
Okay.
Why did God wait so long to be defined by humans? Why did it take so long? And I suppose to clarify, this particular God.
This is another question. I really cannot answer that question.
That's okay.
I can speculate a little bit, but I don't have like.
What would be your initial thoughts? What would you say he revealed himself through the scripture at this particular time and place? Yeah.
Okay. So just imagine for a second if God would have created you in heaven. Okay. Imagine you were born in heaven. Well, you might think that's a great thing. Okay. But what the Bible talks about is that it says that there's not a sun in heaven because God's light is everywhere. So God would be like oxygen, or like sun on like a sunny day, like in the summertime. So he's just everywhere. So you wouldn't have any kind of doubt who he is, what he is. And if there's no evil, if there's only perfection in heaven, then you would not be able to understand what God has actually saved you from, the potential, which is like what we're experiencing, which is death, loss, sickness, et cetera, et cetera. So the way I see it, and I could be wrong about this. I'm giving you Isaiah's take.
Like, that's right. Yeah.
Because it is a little bit different than your average Christian might give you, but that this is actually like a favor that God is doing for us. Because if you were born in heaven, you would want some kind of experience to understand not knowing God, or maybe even choosing the wrong God for a while. because it would make you appreciate the time that God does actually come and reveal himself to you. So I believe that could be part of it. But that still causes me a little bit of, there is some holes in that as well.
Well, see, when you say created in heaven, so we're created in heaven, do you believe also that that's when God decides whether you go to hell or not?
Again, I do not know what God decides as far as that goes.
You don't? Do you believe? Because there are some denominations of Christianity that believe before you're created, God will decide that for you. God will decide who goes to hell or not. Have you heard about that? Have you heard about this?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
it's a complicated thing. First of all, there's not any one particular thought as far as Christianity goes on this issue. It is like there's people fall on both sides. I'm not really sure what to think. I do know this. I will grant this. If that is the case, okay. If that is the case, then you wouldn't be able to say, you would have to give up something. You would have to say that God is not all good to do something like that. So if you're okay to do that, and if you're okay like me, I don't necessarily say that God has to be all good. I might say he has to be sufficiently good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. But this is an all-powerful God. But that's denying one of the omnis, the omnibenevolence of God. So he's selective, he's subjective in terms of the omnibenevolence.
Well, okay, so I'll explain this. To me, God is the greatest conceivable being, okay? So if you conceive of something that's greater than God, that being merely exists inside of your brain, okay? So let's say you thought of everything about God and he had like a really nice hat as well, that this God doesn't have.
Yeah.
All right, so if you think of that God, then that God is just merely in your imagination. So he would be an inferior being, even opposed to this God. Now, from the Bible, we are told that God is everywhere. Okay, we're told that you can't escape God. So the way I might say this is like God, maybe this is the universe, and God is like swallowed the universe, and the universe is like inside of him. So he's like just naturally encompasses everything. Okay. So that would be the only one I feel like I need to defend from the Bible, because the Bible also says that God cannot lie. And so that quite frankly would seem like a detriment, because it's something that God cannot do and something I could do. So clearly I can do something that God cannot do. So that means he cannot be omnipotent. And then omniscience, here's the other one too. The omniscience is knowing everything.
So you've knocked down two omnis of your God. This is great. Okay.
Well, the only thing about omniscience is, I will say, I do believe a couple of things. One, God does have all knowledge, but he can choose to, for example, like close his eye and say, okay, I'm not going to look at this over here. Because like, for example, when Jesus comes down, there's clearly some knowledge that he does not know multiple times. So that would be the equivalent of God saying, oh, I could easily open my eyes and know everything, but I might close my eyes so I could give you free will. And that would be really the only way that we could have free will, is if God
this is like when Adam hid from God in Genesis. He hid from God's anger in Genesis. Remember when he hid? Yeah. So I know what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
It's okay. I'm not saying that we do have free will or not, because that's
another discussion. Yeah, that's okay.
That's a really complicated issue. But as far as to say, that would be the only way that we could have free will, is if God would close his eye and say, I can know everything, but I'm going to choose not to know the outcome of these results, so that you could have a free will. Okay.
Yeah, he's very subjective that way, isn't he?
What do you mean?
Well, it's very subjective. He's choosing, first of all, what not to do and what to do, and choosing what to see and what not to see, choosing who to love and who not to love, choosing who goes to hell, who doesn't go to hell. It seems like a very subjective thing for such an objective morality. Yeah. Which is, I'm not going to go into that. I'm just drawing that as a comparison, an equivocation back to objective versus subjective. It seems that this God is very subjective in your view, your belief in this God. So he seems to have very subjective characteristics.
Well, I will also say this, that the physicists can try to answer the problems of gravity and dark matter and all this other things by invoking multiple alternate I call it like a multiverse. So this could be very well one multiple verses, the universes which God has created, where this is just like some balancing act that God's doing, like similar whenever Neo meets the architect in the Matrix.
Oh God, don't mention that scene. Yeah.
Well, it could be something like that. So I don't claim that this is the only reality, that God isn't doing other things, maybe in other dimensions or in a multiverse. So I just have to outrun you in this sense. I don't feel like I need to answer everything. It's more reasonable to believe that something is out there rather than just nothing. That like this is the only physical reality, is all that there is out there. I don't think that gets us very far.
Good point, actually. And this, okay, good point. Okay, look, I'll go. Let me see if I can steer us back into the questions while we've still got a bit of time. Because I'm anticipating about an hour. Is that okay for you?
Sure.
Question 4 was how do you feel about the different versions of God in the Bible? And what I mean there is, I'm not sure if you knew what I meant there, just to provide a bit of clarity in terms of Old Testament, New Testament, even before, Judaism. We've got different sort of versions of Elohim and Yahweh, and there's even some concepts of a pantheon of gods, and El was elevated to the head of the pantheon. How do you feel about the different versions of God, or do you feel that there's just one version? I suppose what I'm trying to say is, and to be succinct, do you believe in just one version, or do you believe that there were different versions?
So,
or does it depend on the marijuana you're smoking? I'm just throwing that in as a joke, just a joke.
No, marijuana definitely did help me think.
I mean, if it's really good Colombian stuff, you're probably seeing different versions. But anyway, that's.
Okay, I will say this, at least at face value, the Trinity makes like absolute zero sense. Okay, so I will say that. I will.
Thank you for admitting that, because I've battled that all my life.
Yeah. I will throw that out there. It doesn't mean that it's not true, but it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not true in God's, like, if God, let's say God's like a 100th dimensional being or something like that. Certainly in a 3D world, that makes no sense. But how God is able to divide himself, or whatever physics or logic he's using, has to be outside of our realm of comprehension. I know that's a bit of a cop-out, but I'm saying I can tell you emphatically it cannot be true from our level of physics and understanding. So if it is true, then God is just using something. He's using some geometry or physics or logic that is just far beyond. And the only way I could really describe that to you is if, like, let's say God is like a 3D character, and
yep, okay.
So let's just say, just for line of reasoning, let's just say that.
Well, like diagrams. Yep.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you can see that. Say like
closer,
where a triangle.
Bit closer. Okay. Triangle, dot, and I can see a square. Yeah.
So from God's, let's say that this was God and he was talking to us.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at it right here. I could see that this has 1, 2, 3, and 4 sides to it. And if I tried to explain that, I tried to explain that to that character, that I could see all sides of this, it wouldn't make sense, because he's limited in his little plane. And so one of the implications of this is that if God wants to interact, let's say that was his finger and he poked into it, that being would think that God is just the circle. But let's just say God poked this side of his hand into it. Well, he would appear as 4 circles. So, and if he walked into it, he would appear as a very big circle. Assuming I was God, like, interacting here. So I believe, like, if God is a higher dimension, he might come in and interact with our world, and it might appear in different ways at different times, So
Okay. Okay. So we're talking about back to subjective experience about how we experience God.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. So it can be different for each person depending on what. See, we're almost going into ichtheism here. Have you explored ichtheism? Yeah, in terms of each person seems to describe this all truth, the truth of Christianity, which is all, the way, the way, the truth, and the life. So Christians tend to, I don't know about yourself. I think you're quite multi-dimensional in terms of your belief. Is what I'm getting from you. Is that you're sort of multi-dimensional. You're not just sitting there saying everything is true. You've admitted that the Trinity doesn't really make sense. You've said that you don't really you deny the location of the crucifixion. It's claimed to be the crucifixion in Israel. So there's
that was as an atheist, though. That was as an atheist.
Oh, okay. Well, at least at one point in your life, you did deny it. So you at least, for whatever reason, you denied it. But what I'm trying to say as an example is to say that you've at least admitted that the Trinity doesn't make sense to you. And is that true?
Yeah, but that's actually what makes it true to me, though. That's a paradox, because if you were
it is a paradox.
If you were to describe
how does it make true and it doesn't make true.
So look, let's just say I gave you this paper and I said, hey, describe everything about God, and then you said, okay, I described everything about God, and then you gave it to me and I was able to understand it, I wouldn't even read it, because I would say that clearly is not God. You are clearly not defining everything about God in this universe. So that's what I would say. So the fact that the Trinity does not make logical sense is like proof that whatever God is out there, it is way beyond our comprehension. So that's what I positively believe that.
But have you looked into the history of the Trinity and how that doctrine came about in terms of the Nicene Creed and the amendment 50 years later to it? Have you looked into the history of the
a little bit
Trinity? Basically, there were different sects. When the Nicene Creed came out in 321, it was formulated about 321, 325, I think it was. The Holy Spirit wasn't mentioned. It was basically the Father, the Son, and it was phrased in a way that the Holy Spirit really wasn't in there. And then it was about 50 years later when different sects, because there was the Pneumatomachy, they denied. They said the Holy Spirit was inferior to the Father and the Son. There were the Sabellians, there was the Arians, and there was another sect. I can't remember what the fourth were, but they basically came together and agreed on what the Holy Spirit was in terms equal to the other two. They had to agree and made amendments to that creed. So this seems to be a man-made doctrine with man-made rules based on men who authorized men about what was canon to become the Trinity, which again, some denominations of Christians who claim this to be all true disagree with Trinitarianism. They don't agree with it. So
they're Unitarians.
Yeah, exactly. So we're looking at, and some still believe that Jesus was simply a man with the Holy Spirit wasn't involved at all. So we're talking about different sects, different denominations, different beliefs, and all of a sudden we're talking about this religion that claims to be true. Mm-hmm. That many can't agree on what the truth is. I mean, we need to have a basis of truth in many, many things. Mm-hmm. The veracity of truth, the consensus on truth. And while we can find that many things are true and agree that they are true, this doesn't seem to be one of them. Thoughts?
I would say that's one of the best criticisms you could give about Christianity, or maybe religion in general. And Ricky Gervais, he had a very brilliant idea about this, because he said, if you were to destroy all the religious books and all of the science books, he said, like in 50 years, science would come back exactly the way it is. So
he's got a very good point.
I do believe there's a very
cultural basis to Christianity.
Right. In a sense, I would say I agree that in a sense that science is superior, because of the fact that it doesn't matter if you're in Australia, where you are, or in Iceland. Like the physics, you measure the speed of light, whatever. They're going to, the constants, they're going to stay the same. So
the scientific method will always be upheld. Yeah, you will always be able to test things and rely on them. Carry on. Yep.
Yeah, but that being said, I believe that it was very well likely that God just could have created us like the angels, because of the fact that it doesn't make sense for God to create an angel and demons or whatever, and then humans afterwards. This is a bit of a mystery. This is a bit of a paradox inside of Christianity, because it makes sense God's creating ants and bacteria, and then maybe primates, and then humans, and then like the highest creation would be like an angel or a demon or something like that. So it's like, why does God create this perfected being, this like a 4D being, like a immaterial being, and then create humans afterwards? So there has to be some kind of rhyme and reason why what's going on here, and there has to be some kind of reason why we are experiencing this. That's all I'm going to say about that. It has to experience. We have to experience the doubt so that we're going to appreciate God later on, whenever we see His totality.
You've conflated a couple of things there, though. Unfortunately, you sort of conflated things that are testable, observable in the real world through empiricism, to things that have never been demonstrably proven, such as angels and demons. So you're sort of conflating two different things there. So I think we have to be sort of really careful in terms of the skepticism there, in terms of applying what is true to what is believed to be true, if that makes sense.
But you're asking me about theology that I believe in. So I'm going to tell you, according to my theology, I don't feel like this. You mentioned the Nicene Creed. I don't give a rat's behind about any of those creeds or whatever that other doctrines anyone else has come up with. When I read the Bible, there's certain things I would take from it. Okay. Now I understand that.
No, but the Trinity was determined by people.
Okay. Again, I don't care what other people would say. I'm telling you, if I read this
forms the basis of your doctrine, of your belief. You believe Christianity.
Please. Allow me to finish, please.
Yep.
Okay. If I see some kind of relationship where you have three different beings, and there's somehow some kind of different knowledge from each other, but we're told later on that there is only one God, okay, that it creates a paradox, okay? It doesn't mean that it's not true. I'm telling you that reading it, it's very confusing, okay? I will grant that. Did
you realize it was written by people, though, right?
Can you please just stop mentioning what other people have said? I'm going by the source material. Because look, okay,
I'm talking about source material. I'm talking about the Nicene Creed.
I know. I don't care about any creeds. I don't care about any doctrines. That has zero interest.
But you're a Christian.
I don't care what a televangelist says. I don't care what a politician says. I don't care what any other church leader says. I pick up the Bible and I interact with it. And I interact with God Himself. So I'm not interested in what denomination says what, or Catholics say what. That has
fair enough. What about the Bible? Do you believe the Bible was written by people?
Yeah, of course it was written by people.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that Scripture was written by people. It was created by people.
By God. It was inspired
by God. We don't know that. That's not proven. So we have to.
But you're asking me what my beliefs are. You're asking me what my beliefs are. Of course, you're not going to accept that. You don't believe in God.
No, that's fine. I'm just challenging them. That's all. Yeah. I'm just challenging where your position is in terms of how you judge what is true compared to what is believed to be true. There's a difference there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I believe in the Bible. Obviously, you don't accept some of these things, but you're asking me what my beliefs are. So I'm telling you, and some of them aren't even fully consistent. So
that's okay. Honest. We'll go back on track if that's okay. We'll go back on track to the questions. So how about we go to, because we didn't really get an idea. You weren't really sure about the different versions of God in the Bible. We'll skip that one for now, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And we'll go to question 5. The last one. Here it is. For something claiming to be the ultimate truth, why is there still so much debate around such things as Trinitarianism? Well, we sort of touched on one, actually, haven't we? Yeah. We talked about that. Well, yeah. So, yeah, we can talk about other things if you like.
So you're a father. You have 2 kids yourself. I have 1 daughter. I will say this, as a father, it is our responsibility as a father to reveal ourselves to our children, okay? If my daughter, God forbid, thought that you were her father, first of all, you and I would have some problems, but that would more reflect me. That would more reflect on me. I wouldn't therefore think I need to beat you up or punish my daughter.
That's so okay. I've never been to Korea. I've never been to Korea. Let me just say that out loud, okay? For the lawyers out there, yeah.
Only my wife's been in Australia. But,
okay.
Point being is that whatever, especially if you have a perfected being out there, somewhere out there in the universe, it's incumbent for him to reveal himself to us, okay? Not the other way around. So if we are experiencing this lack of certainty, as I said from the beginning, some of these things I just simply do not know the answer to. I can tell you what makes some logical sense to me, okay? Because I have studied like philosophy. I went to Bible college my freshman year, dropped out, became an atheist, then got a degree in history and learned a lot about philosophy. And so when I went back to Bible college to appease my mom, what wound up happening was that I had the logical foundation and I was able to start to tear apart the arguments that Christians were making. So for some reason, Christians just do not understand. Maybe they get their head buried in the Bible. They simply do not understand fallacies and proper lines of reasoning. So I can tell you that some stuff like it certainly cannot be true. Like God cannot be all powerful, because if he was able to do something like create a rock so big that he couldn't lift it, then there would be something he couldn't do. And if he couldn't live it himself, then there's also something he can't do. So this is why I just take philosophy and I apply it and say, this is not even a position I need to defend. What I would defend was that God can do all logically possible things. Okay. So God can't create, for example, a triangle with 30 sides in it. So, but you know what I mean? So
I know what you mean. Yeah. I know what you mean. It seems I'm picking up some certain words I've noted down while you've been speaking. Like you mentioned there, you appeased your mother, you know, in going into these sorts of studies. You experienced a lot of sort of debauchery, drugs and sex and so on, and sort of this lifestyle that obviously has made you feel bad in some ways. It seems the word there, appease, seems to be a very important word that I've sort of just jumped out at me there. Maybe it could be that you're trying to
appease God.
No, more your parents and family and so on.
Yeah. Well,
to establish your belief. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's, I mean, you probably were not listening when I told you that I was a missionary. I was a guitar player. I was a preacher. I did everything that happened, and I never experienced him. And I'm telling you, I've actually experienced him at this point. So
yeah,
when you have experiences that are for someone else and they're not for you, that's how you know. By the way, James has a question right there.
Yeah, it's a good question there. What could change your mind? Yeah, we'll come to that if you like. Just finish that thought, and if you don't mind, we can probably answer that.
Yeah, so it's just totally different. It's totally different when you actually experience it for yourself. I can tell you, nothing. My parents could have spoken to me for a decade straight and told me about how good God was and about how he could change my life. Because I used to be there in church and I would listen to them singing songs about God. And I just could not understand a single word, you know. But after becoming a believer, I would literally be there like, am I the only person in here? Like, you might as well be speaking in Chinese because I don't understand any of these words. But after becoming a believer, there were days where I would put on the music and just cry my eyes out saying like, oh my God, I actually know what these words mean. I totally get what this person was saying whenever I was reading these lyrics decades ago. So as again, it's a totally different experience. It's a totally different experience.
Well, your worldview was honed, I suppose, wasn't it? Your worldview came into focus. I mean, you were exposed to the worldview, the Christian worldview, before. You sort of went away from it. You denied things, and now you've come back. So I suppose the prism of your worldview has become focused back to those aspects of Christianity that make sense to you now. So that would make more sense logically, right?
Yeah.
What about things that would change? What could change your mind? I'll just bring James' questions there. But what could change your mind now? Could you conceive something that would change your mind? If you stopped hearing the voice, for example.
Yeah.
If you stopped hearing the voice, would that mean something to you?
So prior to getting onto the mission field here as a missionary in South Korea, I didn't hear from God in over 5 years, 5.5 years. I didn't hear a peep from him, because I heard from him maybe 6 times in about 5 months, and then not a single word.
So his phone battery went dead.
Damn. If you want to call it that. If you want to call it that.
Yeah.
So there have been, and now I haven't heard, and then he spoke to me, and I haven't heard from him for like almost 1.5 years at this point. So it's not like I wake up today and God's like, oh, hey, yeah, go to this, go check your email. It's like a lot of days it's just me just messing up a lot. Like more often than not, I'm making more mistakes than I'm getting things right, if I'm just to be totally honest with you. So even after all this, I don't have some kind of flawless experience.
Oh, look, none of us do, but none of us are perfect, so we don't have to hold ourselves up to that. Yeah, that's okay.
Right.
We're all human. Yeah. Well, but anyway.
You're a bear. I mean, that being said, I hate to sound like a closed-minded person, because I'm literally tattooed with all the world. If I could show you all the world religions tattooed head to toe down to my feet, like literally down to my feet and legs.
Oh well, you're lucky we're in the new covenant, because you would have gone against Deuteronomy with those tattoos.
Well, most of them were before I was a Christian anyway, so that isn't. Yeah, I'm a new creature now.
Yeah, that's right.
Actually, I did get Jesus.
Cleanse that. That's all good. Yes.
Only
how convenient. Yes.
I got this one done as a Christian, and then I got Jesus tattooed on my side.
Oh wow, really? Yeah. What, the face or the crucifixion or
Jesus in cursive? In
actual letters.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm actually probably gonna get my daughter's name tattooed on my side here. But then again, I wear earrings. I wear earrings. I told you.
Okay. Yes.
I get so nervous sometimes during some of my podcasts. I might have a couple of beers just to take off the edge of anxiety when I come on here. So I'm not really like a super strict. Like you said the F word, or you wash your weight. That I don't get involved with things like that. I'm about experiencing Jesus Christ. Like, so we might philosophically have this debate for another couple of hours or a few weeks. But I'm telling you, you can personally experience Jesus Christ, not inside of a church. We didn't even need to go inside of a church, but you can experience Jesus Christ for yourself. So what I say to you is absolutely irrelevant, because the fact that you could have that, or someone in Antarctica could also have that, is, to me, in my opinion, proof that God is real, for sure. But so to answer the question,
sorry, go ahead. Yep.
I hate to sound so close-minded, because of the fact that, like, I have spent time in a Buddhist temple, and as I said, in Palestine.
Sure. Yep.
I did get to see how the Buddhists live, and stayed in a mosque for a week. So, and I told you about these tattoos, but I'm telling you, I don't think that anything would be able to change my mind, because it's like, what if you were to say, well, what's going to change your mind to believe that your daughter doesn't exist? And I'm telling you, like, the love that I felt for my daughter, the life-changing experience of that, has so utterly changed my mind. You couldn't convince me that my daughter, for example, is like just a figment of my imagination, or
because there's empiricism. We can test your daughter's existence. This is why I asked you before, when you said that you had full knowledge of the God. You know your God better than you know your daughter, and this is what's incredible in my mind, because with your daughter, you know your daughter's real because she exists. We can test the DNA. We can test everything. We can see her. We can observe her. There are so many empirical evidences of, not evidences, I shouldn't say evidences. I'm going into creationism there. There's so much evidence for her existence. And then what you've done is sort of applied a subjective experience, which is questionable because, like I say, drugs involved, low point in your life, the relationships, etc., to ultimate knowledge being absolutely true of this knowledge of God. So it's a really strange dichotomy for me. It's almost like I can't believe this concept to be more true than my own daughter, and for me, that's really, personally, it's just strange for me. It's really strange to hear that, but that's just my opinion.
I'm telling you, it's true. I wouldn't say something so emphatically because my daughter is like my world here, and
That's good to hear.
She's so changed me for the better. Maybe the next time I'll tell you about another time that God materialized something in front of what this one was like right by me, but
it wasn't inside a bag.
No, it wasn't a bag. It
wasn't a bag, and you unzipped it.
But because I felt so inadequate. I mean, think about it. I had been divorced for 5 years, and I came back to South Korea and to reunite with my wife. And the easy thing would have been to just start a new relationship without the baggage of me cheating on, the women or my wife, or the baggage of being verbally abusive to her. That would have been so much easier. But when I look at the Bible, I said, man, I still feel like I'm bound to this woman. So I did the hard thing, which is to come back after 5 years divorce. And as I said, she got pregnant the night I got back. So to me, that was like my daughter is proof of God's of his grace and his restoration power in my life, because the fact that I can be a husband now, I can be a father and take care of my family and love them unconditionally. That to me is the strongest proof. So how would someone destroy that? I don't know, and I don't even know why you would want to do that. It's something that's
no. And look, in that context, I agree with you. If it's working for you and you're happy and you're doing well in life and you love your daughter, you think she's the world, and you're doing good in your life, especially from what you've told me where you've come from, I say hold on to it. I've got no problem with you going on about it, continuing on with that belief at all. Not at all. And that's just being honest. I think if it's working for you, good for you. And you're fine to go on with that. For me, I still just remain completely skeptical about it. I just have to be honest and say that I think your experiences were steeped in more psychological and possibly chemically based issues rather than spiritual. But that's just me, and that's just my opinion from what you've said. Like you said, it was no holds barred, so I thought I'd just give you my honest opinion.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
I can only come from my position and where I'm speaking from, and that it's like you say, you have the Trinity one was an interesting one as well, where you sort of say the Trinity makes sense because it inherently doesn't make sense. It's really strange, and I'd probably just recommend you to look into the history of the Trinity within Christianity. There's a really interesting history to it in terms of how it was formulated and how it didn't really exist until a certain time within the church. It's an interesting one, but but I'd probably say just look into it, just so you know where it came from. That's all. It was part of my step towards learning about the history. See, I wasn't taught about the history of my religion growing up. I was only ever read the Gospel of John, or the Gospels were portions of the Gospels were read to me. I was taught about Easter, Christmas, Lent, all the basics, but not the history of the religion itself and how it was formulated and how it was selected and how the Bible came about. How books were selected for the Bible, how books were rejected, the Apocrypha. Apocrypha, all those sorts of things. It's an interesting history itself, isn't it? And I find that really fascinating in and of itself, especially in contrast with other religions and the Abrahamic religions themselves. And you've witnessed that in Palestine, of course. So it's a very interesting thing to see that. I suppose that human influence in terms of all these people, the fathers of the church, they all debated and thought about these concepts and ideas and honed them and considered them. You got Augustine and Athiest, and all these people were, consolidating all their ideas and concepts into these doctrines of Christianity, and it's very interesting. But look, that's where I'm coming from what you told me. And I really appreciate you sharing all that personal information. I don't think I could do that myself, to be honest, if it had happened to me. So I really do appreciate that.
You got a rare icon. Yeah, I do want to say one last thing. I think it's an absolute shame that you have to, in your mind, use a bear avatar, because in the world I want to work towards is that we're able to have conversations very respectfully. This is why on my podcast I use atheists as co-hosts. I want to both humanize atheists to Christians and Christians to atheists as well. So like, you guys aren't all bad people. You guys are going through different stages of your life. I know whenever I was going through my hedonism, my prodigal son experience, I wasn't a bad person. I was someone who was very hurt, who didn't know how to deal with the trauma of my past. And unfortunately, it was my wife. It was the woman in Greece. It was the people who I encountered along the way who really got hurt by me. But I never set out to hurt anybody. You know, it was never my intention to hurt people. And so when I left Greece and I traumatized this woman, I said, I'm not going to enter into a relationship until I get these issues sorted out of my life, which I have. And so I just, wherever you are right now, wherever anyone is, even out of the religions, I just think that as a Christian, I need to be loving. I need to be empathetic. I need to show patience, empathy, because understanding I was in the exact same shoes of doubt. I understand some of this stuff doesn't make 100% sense, and I'm very open about that fact. But I am open about the fact that it has totally changed my life, and I'm so grateful for the route. Even looking back, all the things now that one day I will have to tell my daughter about where I have been in the past. I've thought about shielding all of that from my daughter, because some of this stuff is so outrageous, especially when I told you why I went.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
So
it would be challenging.
At the age appropriate time, I do want her to know why, not just what I did, but why I was behaving the way that I was, even towards her mother. And I really hope that maybe she will, and maybe she won't. I'm not sure if she is going to understand those kind of things about me. Like, I have this, I'll end off right here. The paradox that I've explained this concerning my daughter is that I want to shield her. I want to shield her from everything I possibly can, so she will never know the level of despair and depression.
You don't have to. Beach has a good point there on the screen. You don't really have to tell your daughter. I mean, we don't tell our children all the depression we go through and all the mental problems we experience. We don't have to. I think, like you say, at a time when she's mature enough, you can probably share some of your history. You don't have to go into detail, do you? Really?
Well, certainly some details I don't want to go into, but
I can imagine.
The point I was trying to say, like, let me finish the point I wanted to say.
Yeah, sorry.
The last thing I say. Because I want to be, if my daughter, for example, were to start digging around, she would clearly see that I was divorced from my wife and remarried 5 years later. So I don't want her to discover a certificate and start asking me questions. I want to be honest about where I've came from, and about not. I want my daughter to get to a point where she is totally bamboozled and floored that I would tell her anything like this, because it's so out of balance with who I actually am right now. But on the other side of that, I just want her to know that what I've done to try to shield her from the kind of things that I experienced growing up that I didn't know how to deal with. I don't want her to have to deal with those issues, to have father issues, and to have to get counseling later on. I want to try to spare her from that. And of course, you can't spare your child from everything.
No,
I just running. She scraped her arm. So I can't say from everything, but I do want.
And this is being a good father. This is being a good father. That's good that you've recognized that and you realize that, and you're going to implement that. That's a good thing. That's good.
Can I ask you one last question before we go?
Yeah, before we wrap up. Yeah, we've gone a bit over the hour, but sure.
Yeah. Your little cubs, your little kids, are you raising them with an atheistic worldview?
Good question. Yeah. Well, what happened was we enrolled them into Catholic school. So they had a Catholic education, because I really only deconverted about 2.5 years ago, really. So we had them in Catholic education. What I was very careful to do, because I was very aware of it, was that I wanted to introduce them to as many different beliefs as possible. So I used a World Encyclopedia. We got this World Encyclopedia book, a really thick, big book. And it was a really good one because the reason I bought it was because it explained Jainism, it explained Islam, it explained Buddhism, it explained Sikhism, Taoism, Christianity. It explained all the world faiths were in there. And so what I was very careful to do was I wanted to expose them to those beliefs and religions. I wanted to show how they were similar in these ways, how they weren't similar in these ways. It took a long time to do it, but eventually what happened was my son, at the age of about 14, 15, just said, I've just got too many questions, Dad. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. My youngest still believes in something. He's not sure what, but he believes in something, and that's cool.
Right.
I'm not going to discourage them in their beliefs, and I've tried really hard not to be cynical or sardonic about church appearances or church attendances or weddings or Christians on TV or Christians in media. I keep that to myself. And my wife is Catholic, so it's.
Speaking of which, you did a hilarious video where you were analyzing the children's book. That was I was laughing so hard watching.
Oh, cool.
I
just thought that was too funny. Yeah, thanks.
You're a respectful person. I really appreciate the talk. You've came on to my channel once. I like to have you on just one-on-one next time, so we could have some similar discussions, because I think this is the only way we move forward in this world. Like we have kids. We both have kids, so we should be working towards a world that is more tolerant, that people don't need to hide behind avatars to be able to have discussions in fear of being doxxed. The atheist pastor, the atheist pastor that I had a conversation with, someone had threatened to dox him online, which is releasing this private information. So he's like, well, screw it. You're not going to threaten me, so I'm just going to come out. And so, this is, but the more we can have, respectful conversation, I think is the better. So thank you so much for your time.
No, thanks, Isaiah. And look, normally I don't push back as hard as this. I'm normally very passive and just let people talk. But this time I really wanted to push back on you because you opened up to me. So I thank you for that.
And I was talking some serious nonsense. I said I was going to get you in a bear trap. I said I was putting my bear traps with salmon and honey. So
it didn't work. I walked right past them. Yeah, I stepped over them easily.
Nothing you said has not been said to me. Nothing you said has not been said to me 100 times before. No, and my own family doesn't believe me. What are the odds? Like to this day, most of my family doesn't believe me. So what are the odds that some random people on the internet? It's practically none. But if you ask me questions, I am going to answer them. So to the best. No,
that's fine. That's fine. If you want to, you can grill me next time. I'm happy to be grilled and challenged. Absolutely, I'm up for it. So if you want, we can wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Happy with that.
I would say you can check out our website at www.rhepodcast.com, where I have conversations and normally use Athiest as co-host. And we treat each other respectfully, definitely push back. We interview people. We just had a Muslim and a Jew come on, and people left in the people just left.
I watched a bit of that. Yes.
They left in the comment section that it was the most respectful interfaith conversation that they had seen. So that really meant a lot to me. Yep. And so, I'm Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists. We've had Buddhists come on. I'm interested to talk to anyone. So if you'd like to reach out to us to come on, just have a civil conversation, it's R.H.E Podcast at gmail.com. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, all those good places. So thanks again. Thank you so much.
I'm glad you do that. Good, nice shilling. Very well done. And we'll leave it there. Look, thank you so much, everybody. Beej and people asking questions. James, Melody. Who else was in there? We had Skits Crusher. Thank you so much for coming along, and please take care out there, everybody. And until next time, look after yourselves. Take care. Bye for now.